Oduduwa and the birth of the Yoruba. In the beginning there was only water. The vast, empty expanse of the earth was a primordial ocean stretching endlessly into the void. No land, no trees, no life, only water and sky. Then the Supreme Being, Olodumare, looked down upon the nothingness and decreed that the world must be created. This is the story of how one man descended from the heavens on a golden chain, how he carried the seed of existence in a sacred satchel, and how he planted it at a place that would become the spiritual cradle of an entire civilization, Ile-Ife. This is the story of Oduduwa. The name Oduduwa has become almost sacred among the Yoruba of Nigeria. He is revered as the progenitor of the Yoruba people, the founder of the first Yoruba kingdom, and the ancestor of countless royal dynasties across West Africa. But who was he, truly? The answer, like so much of ancient history, depends on whom you ask. Across Yorubaland, the stories of Oduduwa's origin have been passed down through generations, carried by oral tradition and preserved in sacred chants and Oriki praise poetry. Two major traditions dominate the narrative, and they could not be more different. The first tradition is celestial. According to the creation myth, Olodumare, the supreme god, summoned Obatala, one of the most revered deities, and gave him a divine mission to create the world and all its inhabitants. Obatala was given a bag filled with sacred earth or clay, along with a golden chain. He descended from Orun, the heavenly realm, hanging the chain from the sky to reach the water-covered earth below. Once he arrived, Obatala poured the earth from his bag onto the water's surface, creating the first solid land. Then he fashioned the first human being out of clay, breathing life into them. These humans became the ancestors of the Yoruba people. But here is where the story takes a tragic turn. Obatala, overwhelmed by the weight of his responsibility, began drinking palm wine excessively. In his inebriated state, he started creating imperfect beings, the disabled, the infirm, those who were not whole. When Olodumare discovered Obatala's error, he was deeply disappointed. The Supreme Being knew he had to intervene. And so Olodumare sent another deity, Oduduwa, to finish the creation of the world. Oduduwa descended on a golden chain, just like his predecessor, arriving at the place where Obatala's work had begun. In his possession was a satchel, an all-powerful satchel containing the essence of existence itself. According to one version of this tradition, Oduduwa and Obatala are represented symbolically by a calabash. Obatala took the top, Oduduwa the bottom. The Igw, the calabash of existence, was handed from Olodumare to Oduduwa. Oduduwa completed the creation of the physical landscape, establishing order where there had been chaos and re-establishing balance. He became known as Olofin Otete, the one who took the calabash of existence from Olodumare. This is why Ile-Ife is called the cradle of the Yoruba, and why Oduduwa is considered the father of the Yoruba race. But there is another tradition, one that brings Oduduwa down from the heavens and places him firmly on earth. According to this account, Oduduwa did not descend from the sky. Instead, he was a historical figure who migrated into the Ife Valley, a man, not a god. Different versions of this migration tradition place his origins in various locations. Some say he came from the vicinity of Mecca, fleeing political disturbances tied to the expansion of Islam. Others claim he came from the Middle East or North Africa, leading his people through a long journey across the continent. One local tradition, however, places his origins much closer to home. According to Ife tradition, Oduduwa came from the village of Oke Ora, a hilltop settlement to the east of what would become Ile-Ife. What is certain, however, is that when Oduduwa arrived in the Ife Valley, the land was not empty. There were already communities, 13 of them, loosely allied, living under the leadership of Obatala. Tensions were brewing. Dissatisfaction with Obatala's leadership had spread among several of the communities. Oduduwa and his followers, arriving from Oke Ora, quickly built alliances with about 6 of the 13 Elu communities. The result was not a simple conquest, but a division. Rather than deposing Obatala entirely, the town was split in two, both figures serving as kings of their respective groups. But this arrangement was not destined to last. Through a protracted struggle lasting many years, Oduduwa was able to defeat the forces of the indigenous communities led by Obatala, and he united these factions into a single Ife state. Oduduwa did not rule for long in Ife. His reign was relatively brief, but its impact was immeasurable. He was known by several honorific titles: Olofin Adamula, Olofin I, and Oluf, meaning the one who is a king, a father, and a divine figure all at once. He became the progenitor of a vast network of royal dynasties, the founding ancestor of the crowned kings who would eventually rule over Oyo, Benin, Ayebu, Ketu, and countless other kingdoms and city-states across Yorubaland. Oduduwa had only one biological son, whose name was Okanbi, also known by the alias Adikosoreg. Okanbi, in turn, had 7 children, 2 princesses and 5 princes. These 7 children would go on to establish the major Yoruba kingdoms that still exist today. Their migrations from Ile-Ife, spreading north, south, east, and west, marked the beginning of what we now recognize as Yoruba civilization. One of Oduduwa's grandsons, Oranmiyan, would become the first Alafin of the Oyo Empire, a kingdom that would later rise to dominate the savannah and eclipse Ife in political and military power. Oranmiyan also traveled to the kingdom of Benin, where he was invited to serve as a ruler. Though he eventually left, finding the people ungovernable, he fathered a son with a Benin woman before departing. That son, Ueka, went on to become the progenitor of all the Obas of Benin, a dynasty that continues to this day. Following his death, Oduduwa was deified and admitted to the Yoruba pantheon as an Orisha, a divine being. He was elevated to the status of a primordial divinity, revered alongside other deities like Obatala and Oranmila. Today, he is venerated as the hero, the warrior, the leader, and the father of the Yoruba race. The name Oduduwa itself carries a profound meaning. It translates to Odutayo Dawa, the great repository that brings forth existence. But the story of Oduduwa is not just a story of the distant past. It lives on in Ile-Ife, where the Uni, the current ruler, still traces his lineage back to Oduduwa's bloodline. It lives on in the annual festivals where Yoruba descendants gather to honor their ancestral father. And it lives on in the hearts of millions of Yoruba people across Nigeria and around the world, who still speak the languages that their ancestors brought from that ancient cradle. Historian Toyin Falola and archaeologist Arabidesi Usman point out that stories of Oduduwa's arrival at Ile-Ife and his children's subsequent migration into new territories mark the beginning of Yoruba history. Studies, whether Oduduwa descended from the sky on a golden chain, or whether he walked into Ife on human feet from Oke Ora, one thing remains true across every tradition, every story, and every telling. He is the bridge between the divine and the earthly. He is the father who gave birth to a nation, and he is the reason why Ife, the cradle of the Yoruba, is called Oran-I, the source origin of the world, the place from which dawn begins. In our next episode, we follow the descendants of Oduduwa as they spread across West Africa, founding empires, forging new kingdoms, and building one of the most sophisticated civilizations in the history of the continent. Because the story of Oduduwa is just the beginning.